I suppose I'm obligated to make a video response just to like kind of emphasize what's happened due to historical posterity, because it's not often that I get into any kind of internet scuffle, right? Because I'm a good boy who's never done anything wrong. It is very, very, very uncommon for me to like have a confrontation with any content creator for any reason. It's very unusual. You can look back through my entire history. Like, I don't really go after other individuals for like any reason. And like the typical purpose for that is because it's very important to me to kind of keep it professional and to try and like maintain like the ideology and like focusing on like Nintendo superiority over other companies. Like, there are very few people on this platform that I would say are like completely reprehensible. It's just not something that like I really genuinely think for the most part. Like, I don't interact, like I don't know these people. I don't like truly genuinely hate them. I genuinely hate Skittybitty. Okay, let's be 100% real here. Skittybitty is like an actual stereotype of everything that's wrong with woke culture. You know, someone who's like very performative, someone who's very hypocritical, someone who will like actively push agendas and then deny she's pushing said agendas. Like, Skittybitty is one of the absolute worst people on the platform, in my opinion, okay? And if you don't know who this person is, well, yeah, so nobody else does either. Like, she produced one Tears of the Kingdom video that blew up because it was critical of the game back when that was still trendy to do. Okay, like, on her Twitter profile, she brags about, like, oh, I produced a Tears of the Kingdom video that was popular 3 years ago, and it's just, like, so, like, you're a nobody, okay? You've never done anything, aside from, like, produce video essays trying to accuse the Zelda team of being racist, essentially. It is, it's very interesting to see how these people kind of prop up and how, like, their audience tries to enable them. Because recently, I did a reaction video talking about, like, Skittybitty's take on, like, the Gerudo. Because a lot of people on Twitter were talking about, like, what a bad video it was and how awful. And I'm just like, okay, fam, let's check this out. So I watch it, and it's about what I expected, okay? Like, it's some woke retard sitting there and trying to tell you that, like, oh, the Gerudo are racist because of Orientalism, okay? And she's, like, you know, misquoting some academic, like, work. She's, like, misrepresenting what other people are saying. She's, like, actively pushing an agenda. She's doing all this, like, stereotypical, like, woke stuff, okay? And it does need to be, like, prefaced, like, immediately, that this is, like, a very stereotypical example of what's wrong with, like, woke culture and their attempts at, like, controlling media. Because what they tend to do is that they just accuse everything of being racist in an attempt to, like, try and get people to listen to them and, like, care about what they say. And to try and, like, control the direction of franchises going forward. Okay, this is what's actually happening. Okay, like, all, like, the cope that they have about how they want, like, things to be better for everyone and how they're good people and how they, like, how they want, like, the Eastern world, the East to be treated with respect. Like, she is arguing with a Japanese guy on Twitter right now about his language. Okay, about, like, you know, I don't know what exactly the argument is, but, like, you know, that's the kind of, like, wokeness we're dealing with here, is that, like, Skittybitty wants to force her culture of being a woke retard onto other people, under this, like, umbrella of, like, oh, I'm just being a good person, and this is just how things are, and this is, like, progressive, and this is right. Like, it's kind of this weird religious cult in that sense, where, like, she tries to justify what she does as being this, like, morally justified thing. And she really spurgs out about anybody who even questions otherwise. And that's what we saw happen with Octarok Reviews last night, where like, you know, she took like 5 months to make like an hour-long video essay going over another video of what someone else did, okay? And, you know, it's very, very apparent that, like, Octarok Reviews knows what he's talking about. You know, he understands, like, the woke agenda. He understands, like, Skittybitty's agenda of trying to, like, push this idea that the Gerudo are secretly racist, you know? Like, and he's, like, pretty much single-handedly refuting not only the fans who are pushing this nonsense, the wokies, but, like, the academics that set the foundation for this kind of rhetoric to begin with. So Octarok Reviews clearly knows what he's talking about, and Skittybitty tries and fails to kind of like dismantle his arguments by like trying to say that like nobody's trying to take away the Gerudo. They are, you know, trying to say that like no one accused the Gerudo of being racist. She is, and trying to like complain about anybody who comes to like Octarok Reviews defense. And that's what happened to me, is that, like, you know, I came out and I said that, like, yeah, Octarok Reviews is right, Skittybitty's a bitch, and, like, the way they tried to frame it, they meaning her and her fans, the way that, like, she and her fans tried to frame it is that, like, oh, yeah, you're just a fanboy of Octarok Reviews. You just sided with him, like, out of blind loyalty, and I'm just kind of like, I've never heard of this guy before. I've never talked about him, you know, like, I watched the video live, and, you know, it could have been very possible where, like, I went into this thinking that, like, both sides were retards, and, like, you know, debunked both of them, but, like, no, Octarok Reviews seems to be right in this specific instance. You know, I didn't really see anything wrong with what he was saying in regard to, like, you know, the anti-woke stuff and what, like, in disputing what, like, Skittybitty was saying. So, like, again, people like Skittybitty are kind of a dying breed, okay? Like, she's kind of like the Tumblr-esque, like, you know, wokey that, like, seriously thinks that she's part of some major cultural revolution that's been dead since, like, 2014, okay? Like, people like her are, like, a fringe minority online, and they have dedicated legions of, like, fellow woke females and simps. You know, like, there are people who are, like, going along with what she's saying, like, just for the movement and just to, like, just to simp for a girl, right? But, like, you know, by and large, I think most people don't have an issue with the Gerudo or how they're portrayed or, like, anything like that. Like, the entire concept of, like, taking influence from real-world cultures and implementing them into, like, your fantasy universe, the idea of having a problem with that is retarded. And it is something that we do absolutely need to dismiss outright. You know, how exactly is depicting a group of people with, like, Arabic and Middle Eastern influences, how exactly is that racist? Like, how exactly is that offensive? Like, it doesn't make any sense. And it's something that we do absolutely have to push back against more. And it is something that's becoming more mainstream. And, like, one of the things I push for in my video is that, like, it's not enough to, like, dismiss Skittybitty because she's just a mouthpiece for the agenda. Like, we have to go after the academics. Like, we have to go after the people who have, like, been pushing these ideas for decades and, like, dismissing them outright. You know, like, Skittybitty tries to do this thing like, oh, man, the East, Westerners classified it as this one part of the world when actually they have hundreds of diverse cultures and histories. And I'm just like, yeah, like, it's a generalization, okay? The East represents what's east of the West, okay? I don't understand what's so complicated of this, okay? Like, again, people, like, make these weird, like, agendas based on things that they don't seem to understand, okay? That they don't seem to have the slightest clue about. It's very odd. And I do think that, like, as these people, like, age and they become lonelier and more miserable, right? When we start seeing, like, you know, the House of Cards kind of collapse, you know, I have seen that Skittybitty hasn't really been that relevant of a YouTube personality since the Tears of the Kingdom video. What we're going to see is just this slow, gradual decline of the agenda, of the narrative, and we're going to kind of see the more and more people push back against this. Like, we're going to see more people take more pride in their European heritage. They're going to take more pride in being part of the West, and they're going to, like, you know, have more pride in how they view other cultures. You know, I do think that is, like, a major thing going forward, is that, yes, we should be allowed to judge other groups of people. We should be allowed to take influence from other groups of people. You know, we should be allowed to have an opinion, essentially. And that's something that, like, Skittybitty just can't understand, because her entire identity, it seems, is to be a woke retard. Like, she doesn't really have anything outside of that. And stepping outside of those bounds is, like, a weird, scary thing to her. And it's something that, like, we as Nintendo fans really need to push back against this. Like, we cannot allow someone like this to have any credibility in the community whatsoever. Her Tears of the Kingdom video was crap.